Hi friends, my name is Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Viga. So I was very saddened today, but not surprised in a way, to hear about the Christchurch shootings, this Islamophobic hate crime that occurred today in New Zealand, in Christchurch. And I have to say that blame should be placed on the current Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, and I'll explain why. In part, he should be blamed for this. One of the 4 people involved in this terrible Islamophobic hate crime was Australian. And I had a look. I've been aware of Scott Morrison, this current Australian Prime Minister, his Islamophobia for a long time, well before he became Prime Minister. And so this is from the Sydney Morning Herald 2011. The opposition immigration spokesperson, Scott Morrison, urged the shadow cabinet to capitalise on the electorate's growing concerns about, quote, Muslim immigration, end quote, Muslims in Australia, end quote, and the, quote, inability, end quote, of Muslim migrants to integrate. Mr. Morrison's suggestion was made at a meeting in December 2011, or it could have been 2011, it doesn't really say, I imagine it is, or maybe it was 2010, at which shadow ministers were asked to bring these ideas, bring 3 ideas for issues on which the coalition should concentrate its political attack during this parliamentary term. The Herald has learnt several colleagues, including the Deputy Leader, Julie Bishop, and the former Immigration Minister, Philip Ruddock, and he's another terrible Islamophobe, strongly disagreed with the suggestion, pointing out that the coalition had long supported a non-discriminatory immigration policy and saying it was not an issue that should be pursued. But after Mr. Morrison's comments on the cost of asylum seeker funerals and the role in the controversial decision to cut a Howard government program to fund schools in Indonesia, colleagues are privately questioning whether he is trying to pursue an anti-Muslim political strategy unilaterally. So that was back in 2011 when he was the immigration minister. What a joke that is. Somebody who says such, he just has always been presented to me as a sort of racist and Islamophobe and all, that sort of thing. And he punches down on asylum seekers, but then, I also place blame on, as well as the current Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, I place blame on the opposition at this current time, which is the Labor Party. And the Labor Party has also enacted some awful asylum seeker policies that are, a lot of our asylum seekers here are from Iraq and Afghanistan, and I would hazard a guess they are probably Muslim. And we have this awful detention asylum seeker situation, like what one could describe as Australia's Guantanamo Bay, and they are left to rot in these detention centres year after year, and they end up self-harming and some suicide. Some get very sick, but they're psychologically traumatized from where they come from, and then we compound it with a no end in sight detention of children and adults, and on Nauru and Manus Island and Christmas Island now, and it's so appalling. I'm so ashamed. Both the Labor Party and the coalition who are in government at the present time have both been responsible for this appalling asylum seeker policy, and that sends a message to people who already have Islamophobic tendencies or racist tendencies, and it sort of like encourages them, to sort of somebody who is really, really impulsive and not able to control themselves, and is full of hate for a group that they probably don't know anybody who's Muslim. just acts out something like this, and 40 people are now dead, 40 people who were just going to their mosque to pray on a Friday afternoon, and that's the busiest day in Christchurch, New Zealand. They were just going there to pray, and now 40 people are dead from there, and probably more injured. I don't know how many are injured. 40 people. And apparently he live streamed this on Facebook, the Australian, I think, and it was 17 minutes of uninterrupted live stream while he was killing people in the mosque. And he wrote a 73-page manifesto explaining why he did it. And I'm not going to mention his name because it's really sad and it's really appalling and it's really disgusting, and I don't want to give him any sort of notoriety at all. But he was one of 4 people, and there was one woman involved, and I think, what on earth? But you know, and there is nobody who takes, there will be none of these politicians who spread, and like even Trump, you can, because we have, you know, everybody is connected online, you know, you can see constant Islamophobia from, it's either overt from, say, the Trump administration, or it's not overt as in verbally from, say, people like Obama, and but their policies in the Middle East are racist, Islamophobic, white supremacist policies, destroying one Muslim majority country after another. And this sends a message to people like this Australian fellow and those 3 other people who committed this atrocious thing on innocent Muslims praying in a mosque. It is not something that happens in a vacuum, this kind of thing. And I blame any politician from any party for any Islamophobia that they have ever put out there, for any sort of racist asylum seeker policies that they put out there, any sort of treating Muslims like they're second-class citizens, which is what we seem to do here in Australia on a whole. If you can't embrace asylum seekers that are running away from our Western imperialist wars, what kind of country are we here in Australia? There is no anti-war movement to speak of. And this sort of basically going along with the US's imperialist wars in these countries and destroying their countries and leaving the people in tatters, and children in Iraq dying or being born deformed because of these depleted uranium weapons that they've been using there, and just all the trauma that we have put them through. And then they try and flee that, and then we stick them, instead of embracing them and trying to make things better for them, we end up shoving them into these dreadful torturous detention things. I mean, I cannot believe this is the Australia I grew up in. I'm not saying the Australia I grew up in didn't have racist problems and stuff, but I mean, you know, and there's always a pushback on, you know, when you, like the Vietnam War, there was a pushback on taking Vietnamese refugees, and this is the appalling thing. You know, like Australia was born out of a genocide, and, you know, the invasion day and ongoing and just killing off Indigenous people. Here in Tasmania, we pretty much massacred every Indigenous person there was here. So Australia, you know, has this history like other Western, like the US and Britain, etc. And then we just continue on this sort of backward, knuckle-dragging nonsense, and treating people that are different, that are another group, from another group or from another race, treating them like they're rubbish or they're second-class citizens, or constantly vilifying, expecting Muslims to apologize for anybody in the world, or anybody who happens to be involved in some sort of violence. Muslims are expected to apologise for that, which is ridiculous. Where is Scott Morrison's demanding an apology from every white person in Australia for this fucking hate crime against Muslims? He won't do that, but he'd happily, if this had been reversed and it was a Muslim going into a Catholic church or something and doing this kind of thing, he'd be expecting the Muslim community in Australia to be apologising for it. This is a sort of racist, you know, the way he talks about Muslims online. It's appalling. But this is a worldwide problem. The Trump administration does the same thing. And Obama may not have been overt like that, but he had terrible policies. He expanded 2 wars to 7 in the Middle East and killed many, many people, dropping 3 bombs every hour of every day for 8 years in the Middle East. That's Obama, the Nobel Peace Prize recipient, Obama. And he had a drone kill list every Tuesday. It's amazing. I'm surprised there isn't. I'm amazed at the capacity for many Muslims in their communities to not just go, you know, mental basically and want to blow things up. Seriously, with this sort of constant vilification. I have Muslim friends online and I'm just appalled. It makes me sick in the stomach. They're wonderful people, you know, and it's just sort of, I don't know, I just get, every time these sort of things happen, there's this sort of love and peace that comes from these people, these Muslims, friends of mine, and I just think, you know, that's sort of what a real religion is supposed to be, loving and peaceful, and sort of, you know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know, it's just so disturbing to me, this happening, and such major carnage, like 40 people, and there's probably more wounded. That's going to be such a trauma for those people in those mosques. There were 2 mosques that they attacked. So this was a coordinated thing, and they had improvised explosive devices that I think they had attached to cars. I haven't looked at a great deal at the details, but and I sort of feel sad. The Prime Minister of New Zealand has always seemed to me like she's been very caring and open, and she cares about different groups and stuff. She's not like Scott Morrison. She's not like Trump. She's actually seems to be quite a good Prime Minister in relation to her regard for other human beings.
This is one of New Zealand's darkest days. Clearly, what has happened here is an extraordinary and unprecedented act of violence. Many of those who will have been directly affected by this shooting may be migrants to New Zealand. They may even be refugees here. They have chosen to make New Zealand their home, and it is their home. They are us. The person who has perpetuated this violence against us is not. They have no place in New Zealand. There is no place in New Zealand for such acts of extreme and unprecedented violence, which it is clear this act was.
And I feel sad that this has happened in her country, and I'm very sad that somebody from here has gone over there and participated in it with great glee. You know, and I really do, I place blame on Scott Morrison for all the Islamophobia that he's put out there, which has fueled people who already have racist tendencies and Islamophobic tendencies. And one of the things, and this is a white supremacist thing too, this is something I think he indicated, the Australian, that in his manifesto, that he felt like this was Muslims were going to take over Europe, and it's all about his fear of white people becoming a minority or something, and Muslims taking over the world. Good heavens, you know? So It's very sad, and so I just want to state, I knew something like this eventually would happen because you cannot have politicians like Scott Morrison and the like sprouting Islamophobia like that, whatever chance they get, and somebody not taking it to the extreme. I have to refrain from saying what I think about Scott Morrison in relation to that. I'm constantly disgusted with the sort of things that come out of his mouth. And I'm also disgusted at the Labor Party for supporting dreadful, racist asylum seeker policies. No justice, no compassion for those people at all. It's appalling. And we are responsible in part because of our joining the US empire in their imperialist gallivants in the Middle East, you know, the managed chaos that they create in every country. And we participate in that. And then these people are looking for somewhere to go, and that's the way we treat them on Nauru and Manus and now Christmas Island. That's the way we treat these people. So we have essentially racist Islamophobic politicians if they support that kind of appalling policy towards asylum seekers. You cannot have messages like this, whether they're explicit or whether the policies imply this sort of disregard for those individuals and those groups. You cannot have that and it not affect people who have hatred already for those groups and have a white supremacist position of some kind. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I hope that all those families that have been affected by that in the Muslim community in Christchurch and anywhere else that they have family that are associated with those victims of this terrible, terrible terrorist hate crime, that they have healing and that something good comes from this. I always hope that, you know, in tragedy something good comes from that tragedy, and hopefully it will. But I hope the healing is quick, and I send my love to those people and anybody else who has been a victim of white supremacist hate crimes, or any hate crime really, in the world. I send my love and healing. Anyway, we're going to have to seriously address this position, this white supremacist thing, which in the United States, 50% or more of mass shootings are carried out by white men, young white men. And it's usually just like these people who did this today, that particular attitude. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. My name is Trish Roberts. Please subscribe if you like the content, and please click the like button if you like the content, and click the notifications bell to get updates, and please leave comments if you wish. And if there's any Islamophobic comments, they just get removed immediately and you get blocked. I don't tolerate that. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Till next time, bye for now.